Most progressive synagogues in the world begin morning service and very often Kabbalat Shabbat services as well with the prayer Ma Tovuh, a prayer which says very familiar words for most of us. Ma Tovuh ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your tabernacles, or maybe sanctuaries, O Israel. Because of the latter part about sanctuaries, Ashkenazi tradition is to recite this prayer every time when you enter a synagogue's building. Traditionally, there is not much needed for a place to become a synagogue. There should be other Jews, at least one who knows how to pray, and a very unusual requirement for a synagogue, for a building, is a window for, I assume, for air circulation, but most importantly, because to ensure connection with the outside world, so that you can see whether it's dark or light outside. In a way, any room can become a sanctuary for Jews. We don't need much for a place to become sacred, to become our sanctuary. We make it sacred. In psychology, there is a notion called anchoring effect. People use this term to describe the common human tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive, so-called anchor. So when we make decisions, anchoring occurs when individuals use an initial piece of information to make subsequent judgments. Once an anchor is set, other judgments are made by adjusting away from that anchor, and there is a bias towards interpreting other information around this anchor. For example, initial price offered for, let's say, for a used car sets the standard for the rest of the negotiations. So that price, the initial piece of information, is an anchor, and prices lower than the initial price will seem more reasonable, even if they're still higher than an average price or the price which this car is really worth. Ma Tovuh seems to be an anchor for Jewish prayer in the progressive circles. It is something positive we begin every single prayer with. This is the first words we hear in the beginning of the prayer and entering the synagogue. Even now, when all of us are in the comfort of our homes, we still recite it, and tomorrow morning we will begin our service with these words. In a way, by doing so, we will transform our homes into the Jewish place or space of worship, prayer and meditation. The first line of the prayer comes from the Torah, and we'll hear this line read by Rabbi Alex tomorrow morning during the Torah reading. When you hear this verse out of the context, Ma Tovuh ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel, how lovely are your tents, Jacob, your sanctuaries, Israel, a logical assumption might be that the word sanctuaries refers to the Mishkan, to the main sanctuary during the wandering, portable tabernacle, and the word tents probably refers to the tents which people lived in during the journey. And one can imagine Moses making an inspection, taking a satisfied look at the people from afar and proclaiming the words Ma Tovuh, great work, everything looks fantastic. But that's not how it happened at all. Instead, we find this text in the Torah almost like an afterthought. It appears in the story of Balaam and the talking donkey. Balaam was a non-Jewish prophet who had an instruction to curse the Jewish people. How could such profound words we utter every week be said by a minor, not very significant character of the Torah, and who is also happened to be a non-Jew? Why these words have such a weight in our liturgy? Often, our inclination as Jewish people is to look inwards and only consider what we do and how we behave. The history of our tradition, of our people, has many painful moments, and we often turn inwards. And whatever happens outside doesn't concern us as much as the community life or the life of our people. Often it looks suspicious when others talk about Jews and discuss our history, challenge our understanding of our story, of a narrative, and try to use our story to illustrate and compare other topics, other narratives. This week, the social network Twitter discussed Jewish topics twice. So how it works is that the Jewish social network Twitter works in a way that you can see what topic is trending now. So-called trending topic is calculated by Twitter's AI, artificial intelligence, using complex machine-based analysis. But simply, it means that many people discuss it right now and use this word, which appears to be the trending topic, in their comments and posts. I'm not going to bore you with the details of these particular discussions. What I was interested in was the fact that some Jews felt very uncomfortable and insecure when Jewish topics were discussed by a wider society. Why would the UK society say so much about the tiny minority, the tiny Jewish minority? Why would something Jewish be relevant for millions of people? And I'm sure when the topic is trending, it is read by at least hundreds of thousands of people. It is normal to feel ownership and protective of your history and your narrative, but what if our story can help others? The Jewish people is one of the oldest groups in the world which survived and can claim the continuous existence for over 3,000 years, and possibly even more. What if our story can be an inspiration and help for others today? In the Torah, we are commanded to be Or Lagoim, the light to other nations. Not to make ourselves light only, not to make others to be like us, not to make everybody Jewish, but to serve as a light, as an influence for good for the entire world, not just ourselves. Our synagogues are traditionally required to have windows and to have a connection with the outside world. Our prayer begins with a quote by a non-Jew. Our pride is in our texts, our wisdom, our teachers, and our stories. We should not be afraid to share our wisdom and the beauty of our tradition with others. We should not be afraid to be in touch with the wider society, to have a meaningful and respectful debates. Universal idea of being an integral part of the world is an anchor of Judaism. We always had it, 3,000 years ago, today and we will have it in the future. Perhaps every time we begin something new, there is another lesson in the Tovuh, that we may say, Tovuh, how lovely. And whatever conversation begins, whatever story is shared, especially if it's our story, we can be positive about it and say, Tovuh, how lovely. Shabbat shalom.